Imagine a time nearly 1,000 years ago. Europe was a very different place. Most people never traveled far from their homes. Their world was small, centered on their village and their faith. Then a powerful call echoed across the continent. It was a call to journey to a faraway land. This land was considered holy by Christians, Jews and Muslims. The year was 1095. Pope Urban II spoke to a crowd in Clermont, France. He urged knights and commoners alike to embark on an armed pilgrimage, their mission to reclaim Jerusalem and other sacred sites in the Holy Land from Muslim rule. This was the beginning of the Crusades, a series of expeditions that would change the course of history. For some, it was a matter of profound religious devotion. They truly believed they were doing God's work. For others, the motivations were more worldly. Knights sought adventure, glory, and perhaps even new lands to rule. Merchants saw chances for new trade routes and immense profits. Even common people, burdened by hardship and poverty, hoped for a better life or spiritual salvation. The idea of a long, perilous journey to the east was daunting. Yet tens of thousands answered the call. They sewed crosses onto their tunics, a symbol of their vow. Their journey would be an epic of human endurance, faith, and folly. Before the main armies could organize, a wave of popular enthusiasm swept across Europe. This was the People's Crusade. Led by preachers like Peter the Hermit, a man of fiery words and intense piety, he rode a donkey and preached to vast crowds, promising divine protection on their journey to Jerusalem. Thousands of commoners joined, including peasants and artisans. They were ill-equipped and undisciplined. Many brought their families, lacking proper weapons and provisions. Their faith was their primary shield. They set off in the spring of 1096. Their journey was chaotic and often tragic. In the Rhineland, some attacked Jewish communities. These massacres were a dark stain on the Crusades. In Hungary and the Byzantine Empire, they looted and clashed with locals. Eventually, they reached Constantinople. Near Civeto, they were ambushed by a Turkish army. Most were killed or captured. After the ill-fated People's Crusade, the main Crusader armies began their long march. These were better organized, led by powerful nobles and experienced knights. They didn't all take the exact same path. Several major routes converged as they moved eastward. One popular land route started in France and Germany. Crusaders from northern France, Lorraine, and the German lands often traveled down the Rhine River. Then they went overland, following the Danube River through Hungary. This path led them into the Balkans and towards the Byzantine Empire. Another significant contingent, primarily from southern France, led by Raymond IV, Count of Toulouse, took a different land route. They traveled across northern Italy, then they journeyed down the eastern coast of the Adriatic Sea. The goal for all these land-based groups was Constantinople. The Byzantines were Orthodox Christians, and their emperor, Alexios I Komnenos, had initially requested help from the west against the Seljuk Turks. Not all crusaders traveled by land. Some, particularly those from Italy and southern France, opted for sea routes. The Italian maritime republics of Genoa, Pisa, and Venice were becoming powerful. They had ships capable of transporting troops and supplies across the Mediterranean. Sea travel could be faster than overland marching. However, it had its own perils. Constantinople was a city like no other in the medieval world. Founded by Emperor Constantine the Great, it was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. For centuries, it had been a beacon of civilization, wealth, and power. When the Crusaders first laid eyes on it, they were utterly astounded. Its massive walls, like the Theodosian walls, seemed impenetrable. Its magnificent churches, especially the Hagia Sophia, with its enormous dome, shimmered with gold mosaics. Palaces, forums, and aqueducts spoke of a grandeur unknown in most of Western Europe. The Byzantine Emperor, Alexios I Komnenos, had a complex relationship with the Crusaders. He had appealed to the West for military aid against the Seljuk Turks, who were encroaching on his territory. However, he likely expected a manageable force of mercenaries, not the vast independent armies that arrived. Constantinople served as a crucial staging point for the First Crusade. The Crusaders spent time there, resupplying, reorganizing, and negotiating with the emperor. The city was a vibrant, sometimes overwhelming cultural experience for the Westerners. Section 5. The Ordeal of Antioch, a test of steel and spirit. After leaving Constantinople and achieving an early victory at Nicaea, the armies faced the grueling trek across Asia Minor. The summer heat was brutal, food and water were scarce, many soldiers and horses perished from thirst, starvation and disease. The Seljuk Turks employed scorched earth tactics, destroying crops and poisoning wells. They also harassed the Crusader columns with hit-and-run attacks. Their next major objective was Antioch, an ancient and strategically vital city in northern Syria. The Crusaders arrived before its gates in October 1097. The siege of Antioch would last for nearly 8 agonizing months. The Crusaders suffered terribly from hunger, disease, and the cold winter weather. Foraging parties were often ambushed. The siege was marked by incredible hardship and remarkable acts of bravery. Finally, in June 1098, Antioch fell to the Crusaders, not through a direct assault but through betrayal. An Armenian tower commander named Firuz made a secret deal with Bohemond. They opened a gate and the Crusader army poured into the city. A terrible massacre of the Muslim and even some Christian inhabitants ensued. Just days later, a massive Turkish army, led by Kerboga of Mosul, arrived and besieged the Crusaders inside Antioch. Section 6. Jerusalem, the sacred goal, a city of tears and triumph. After the victory at Antioch, the Crusaders pushed towards Jerusalem. The journey through Syria and Palestine was arduous. The summer heat was intense. The sight of Jerusalem brought tears to their eyes. This was the moment they had dreamed of for 3 years. Jerusalem was now within their grasp. The city was under the Fatimid Caliphate. The Fatimid governor was prepared for a siege. The Crusaders, though reduced in number, were filled with zeal. They began to lay siege to the city. They lacked siege equipment, food and water. The area had been stripped of resources. The siege lasted over a month. The Crusaders faced intense thirst and hunger. Genoese ships brought timber and supplies. The final assault began on July 14th. After fierce fighting, the Crusaders breached the walls. Section 7, where worlds met. Cultural encounters on the road. The journey of the Crusaders was not just a military campaign, it was an extended, often intense series of cultural encounters. As they traveled from Western Europe through the Byzantine Empire and into the lands of the Levant, they came into contact with a diverse array of peoples and traditions. These interactions were complex, ranging from cautious cooperation and curious observation to outright hostility and violent conflict. The Crusaders, largely from feudal societies with a relatively homogeneous Christian culture, were thrust into regions that were far more cosmopolitan and diverse. In the Byzantine Empire, the Crusaders encountered a Christian society that was older, wealthier, and in many ways more sophisticated than their own. They marveled at the splendor of Constantinople, its art, architecture, and imperial ceremonies. However, they also found Byzantine customs and religious practices unfamiliar, sometimes even suspect. The Byzantines, in turn, often viewed the Western Franks or Latins as uncultured, aggressive, and untrustworthy. Differences in language, theology, and political objectives created persistent friction. Yet, there was also practical cooperation, especially in the early stages, with Byzantines providing guides, supplies, and military advice. Further east, in Syria and Palestine, the Crusaders encountered various Muslim populations, primarily Seljuk Turks and Arab communities under Fatimid rule. Section 8. Power plays and politics, the unseen forces of the journey. The Crusades were ostensibly religious pilgrimages, but they were deeply entangled with power struggles and political maneuvering from the very beginning. The Pope's call was, in part, an assertion of papal authority over secular rulers, and a bid to unite Christian Europe under his spiritual leadership. For the knights and nobles who led the armies, the journey was also an opportunity to enhance their own power, prestige, and wealth. The dream of carving out new lordships in the East was a powerful motivator, often leading to intense rivalries and competition among the Crusader leaders themselves. These internal power struggles frequently hampered the Crusader efforts and shaped the outcomes of their campaigns. The Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos had his own political agenda. He hoped to use the Western Knights as a means to recover Byzantine territories lost to the Seljuk Turks. His insistence on oaths of fealty and the return of former Byzantine lands created ongoing tension. The Crusaders, particularly leaders like Bohemond of Taranto, were often reluctant to hand over hard-won cities like Antioch. Bohemond successfully established himself as Prince of Antioch, creating the first Crusader state, much to the emperor's displeasure. This clash of interests between the Byzantines and the Crusaders would be a recurring theme. Section 9. Footprints in Time, the Crusades' legacy on our modern world. The Crusades, those epic and often brutal journeys undertaken centuries ago, have left indelible footprints on the sands of time. Their impact resonates even today, influencing not just the historical landscape of the Middle East and Europe, but also aspects of modern travel and intercultural understanding. While the era of armed pilgrimage to reclaim holy sites is long past, the memory of these expeditions continues to shape perceptions and relationships. One significant legacy is the increased contact and exchange, however conflict-ridden, between Western Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean. Crusaders returning home brought with them new goods, ideas and knowledge. Spices like pepper and cinnamon, sugar, new fruits like lemons and apricots, and textiles such as silk and cotton became more widely known in Europe. While not a direct result of peaceful trade missions, the presence of Crusaders in the East stimulated demand and opened up new, albeit often contested, trade routes. Italian city-states like Venice and Genoa, which provided transport and supplies, grew immensely wealthy and powerful, laying some of the groundwork for the later Renaissance. The Crusades also had a profound and often negative impact on interfaith relations. The violence and animosity generated between Christians and Muslims and the persecution of Jewish communities left deep scars.